So let's talk briefly about the Paketti Overdub. I made this 14 years ago, and the idea was simple. As you might be aware of it, there is such a thing as the G01, which is glide towards given note by. This means that if you got a sample, a really long sample, I'm gonna try and load something. Maybe the simplest way would be to hit the self-contained folders. So there we go. I'm gonna look for a really long ambient sample. There we go. So in this case, this is about 7.5 minutes of length. So if I just trigger it here with a 32 row pattern and I press play, as you can see, it will just play the first 32 rows of it, and that is it. Now, that's not really useful because if we want to play 7.5 minutes of content, what we really want is to get to the end and then start again, just like how Ableton Live would do it in the session view. So what happens, and this is an old tracker module trick, or tracker trick, is you start using glide. But instead of gliding to something, I mean, you could glide to, well, I mean, the old thing was, of course, that that this would glide to this at a certain speed. But when you're not gliding or changing the note in any way, then what this means is start the playback of this track, start the playback of the sample, and then keep gliding. So the next time this row is hit, it goes, well, do I want to trigger this? No, I want to glide to this note. And because we're already on that note, the only thing it's gonna do is continue. So let me illustrate this really quickly. So if I change this pattern to 4 rows, or actually 16 rows, and I start playback, and I go to the sample editor, you will see what starts happening. So let's start playback. And so on and so forth. So basically this is an endless looper, and the beauty of this is the following. So if I make a copy of this and I change it to, now it's playing the copy of it, and we're gonna hit maybe this, so just a really short segment, maybe like, let's keep it at that, so like this. And now I'm gonna show you how it plays it. So it's 16 rows, well, let's change it to 32 rows and start playback with the glide. So here we go. So as you can see, it fully plays the first 32 rows, and then when it finishes playing, because there's no more to play, it's gonna be silent, and then the next G01 goes, well, is this playing? No, it isn't. Let's trigger it. So if I change this to 16, you'll hear it in a different way. So like this. because it ends on the third loop, it will start on the fourth loop. So you can kind of offset these lengths as much as you like and do whatever you like with the idea. So let's do it like this, like that, and again G01 and G01, and maybe I'll just jump down the volume slightly, and let's look at this. I think you're getting it. By utilizing the G01 trick, you can play any length of wave files and eventually they will start looping or being retriggered when there's nothing playing. Now, of course, nothing of the sort is going to happen if you make a loop. So if you make this loop, if you make a forward loop, it's just going to keep playing it. And in this case, it's kind of interesting because what you can do is the following. By G01, it will always try to lift it back up to C4. So if I, for instance, start doing something like this, which is to slide the pitch down by 1 on every row, then this would try to cancel out this, but because there's more of those, then it's only gonna lift it slightly, so you can hear what's gonna start happening. So let's look at this. And that's when it stopped responding to any of the pitch ups or pitch downs. So as you can see, with the G01 trick, you can kind of break loose of the whole tracker pattern limits. For instance, this track can play 10 minutes, or this track can play 3 hours or 30 hours, or whatever the length is or whatever the speed is. So that's a reward in itself, because this kind of lets you think about this in the same way as Ableton Live Session View. But here is where it gets interesting, and here is why I'm even talking about Paketti Overdub. So the Renoise developers ages ago, they showed a very specific thing. They gave you a specific thing in the sample recorder. The sample recorder itself is great, but they have this thing called sync start stop, which means if you set it to pattern, there's a nice little glitch here, it shifts slightly. If you set it to pattern, what's gonna happen is that when you start playback, it's gonna record from here to here, and then it's gonna keep going because it's synced to the pattern. So the stop is actually stop at the end of the currently playing pattern, meaning that if you go 32 row pattern like this and you start playback, let's look at it at least without any audio. So nothing's gonna happen until you press play, and there it is. It's recording the first pattern, second pattern, third pattern, and fourth pattern. Now it's going to beautifully end right there where the fourth pattern ends, which means that this content here would be 1 pattern, 2 pattern, 3 pattern, 4 pattern. So you trigger it like this, and what's going to happen? Exactly what you'd expect. So let's have the playback start. It's going to play till the 9th bar or whatever. But that's where the G01 trick comes in. If you do this, it's going to play 32, 64, 96, 128, and so on and so on. I guess 256. So let's have a look. In fact, yeah. So the overdub idea was me going, I don't want to think about the recording. I don't want to think about putting the G01 in there. I don't want to think about putting the instrument name there. I want all this to be done automatically. And that's what I did. That's what I did in 2012. That's why there is a thing called Paketti Overdub. And I made some modifications to it. I made some modulations to it because sometimes I wanted the metronome to be on. Sometimes I wanted the line input to be on. Meaning that when you add the line input like this, you would be hearing what's coming in from the audio. So maybe I would be hearing a synthesizer. So in this case, the reason why there's a line input here is to completely not be using this no effects thing. So I mean, prior to me writing the overdub system, I would be going like, okay, I want this synth that's coming in from this input to be played through these effects. So in essence, I would be having a bunch of delays and reverbs on this, and then I would be playing the synth through these effects by using the sample recorder in monitor mode patched into a specific channel. And that required a lot of fiddling because sometimes I would want it somewhere, sometimes I wouldn't want it there. And then I decided against using effects altogether. And the way I solved it was I would use a synth. I would use a synth coming in from the line input. And this would be the input of the synth. It would go through these effects and then I would hear it. So in essence, the sample recorder I didn't want to use. But then when I recorded it, I no longer had any use for the line input, so I would remove it. And the way I thought about the overdub was I want there to be a way to arm a channel to record content pattern per pattern or per pattern length. I want to be able to play 5 minutes of pads or 10 minutes of random audio. I want it to play while the pattern plays. I want to hear what the pattern sounds like, the actual tracked pattern. I want to hear the slab of sound that I'm recording, and I want it to be imprinted onto the pattern automatically. So I don't want at the end to go like, well, I just played something beautiful, I'm ready to play something else. No, I need to close the sample editor, I need to navigate to the sample, I need to go to the first pattern, first row, I need to put this in, I need to remove the line input, and then I'm ready to play something beautiful again, which would take me out of the whole process of being able to write something, because I would already be thinking about the mechanics of this. And that's how the Paketti Overdub became a reality. What I wanted was that when I press start here, and this can't be done in Renoise because of the sample recorder not being dealt as a thing that can trigger scripts. So I had to figure out my own way of doing this. And the own way of doing this was to actually have a script that would open up the sample recorder, start sampling, start playback, and here is where we come to the different configurations of it. I would sometimes want metronome, but no line input. I would sometimes want no metronome, but line input. And sometimes I wouldn't want any metronome or line input. And as you can see, there's overdub 1, overdub 12. And the reason of this is very simple. As you know, well, you might know, that a track in itself can have 12 note columns. So what does the Paketti Overdub 12 do? It samples, I'm just going to use these as bad examples, just to illustrate the point. First it samples one thing, then it gets ready to sample another, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. 12. And all of these have G01. And these would be appended or augmented one at a time as I run the script. I wanted this to be as transparent as possible, well, not even transparent, as invisible as possible. I wanted it to basically be what like the first thing that I did when I realized that these can be MIDI mapped was I made a button that just, triggers this. So I hold down a button and it records. Then I release the button and it stops recording. I wanted a similar thing, but for them to immediately add themselves automatically into the track note columns and for them to loop. So this led to a lot of experimentation, and it would result in me basically doing choral work where someone would sing a note, or I would sing a note, and then I would sing another note, and they would be as long as they wanted to be, and they would loop. And the overdubbing system would actually rename this channel, so it would be like overdub 1. But if there were like 10 of them, 10 of the overdubs, then it would be called that. So this would be an incremental rename of it. And I've been on that way ever since. When I got it working in 2012, I was very happy, because what this made it possible for me to do was to make a beat and then just jam on top of it, play a bass line on top of it, play some pads on top of it on a synth, and just throw them in. Just press a button, start playing, and press another button. I mean, now I have a... what's it called again? It's FCB 1010. Yeah, I just bought this. I finally found it for cheap. I got it for 50 bucks. I'm yet to plug it in. But the reason why I'm talking about the overdub altogether is that someone on my Discord actually asked about it, and I promised them to make a video, and this is like one way of me trying to explain uh, what it tries to be and what it should become. So when Renoise 3.5 came out, they gave you control over this, which is great. So now I can make the overdub system work in such a way that I don't need to tell the user, oh yes, in addition to trying to learn the overdub, you also need to remember to set this to pattern. I can set this automatically as far as I can remember. The only thing that I can't do is turn this on and off, because the scripting takes care of the creating a new instrument on each take. So if this is on and this is off, nothing in overdub is going to work. But overdub changes this automatically to this, and it's up to the user to know to set this off, and maybe this off too. And but the payload, or what we're trying to achieve here, is for there to be a shortcut that starts and the same shortcut stops the playback and then prints it onto the track. Same thing for MIDI, that there's a MIDI button that starts the playback, i.e. opens this, sets it to pattern, and starts it, and starts the recording process. And then when you press the same MIDI button again, it counts till the end of the pattern, and then it ends it. And then it prints it here, just like I did, like this. And then it's Pakettified, of course, with, you know, these settings, so that's another layer of complexity. But let's actually see what the overdub currently does, because I kind of want to see. I doubt it works. What would be a good load random samples into? Well, what about this? What about this? Okay, let's set this and forget it. So playback is not on, pattern follow is not on, and there's nothing here. So I'm just gonna trigger it and see what happens. Like this. So instrument was successfully loaded. It loaded the Paketti instrument. The pattern mode is on, but nothing started. So I'm just gonna press the keys again and see what happens, because this is the armed mode, so in essence nothing should happen, but let's see. Okay, so I changed it to overdub 1 pattern to 32. This is just to inform you that, you know, this is the content, this is the name of the sample. The name of the sample is still that, but the name of the instrument is overdub 1, pattern length is 32 rows, BPM is 137, LPB is 4. So let's try again. So like that. Start playback. Here's some audio that's gonna happen. Second audio. As you can see, it already wrote the G01 in there, because that needs to be there no matter what, because that was the channel, and that was the content, and I think I'm still there. So now I'm going to press the same button again. So here I am, I'm recording something. So it's already kind of going all over the place. So the reason why this doesn't work is because I didn't make it clever enough. The first, like, this is a state issue. So when I run this script, it's in start mode. And then I press, then I'm here, and I press play. So now it's recording. Now it's recording, and that's the second pattern, and that's the third pattern, and that's the fourth pattern. As you can see, the G01 is not there. So I'm gonna press the same shortcut again. And now it stopped it. And there it is. So you can see that,
now it's recording.
The content has been recorded. And that's the second pattern. And that's the third pattern. And that's the fourth pattern. As you can see, the G01 is not there. So I'm gonna press the same shortcut again. Okay. So this is in a nutshell how it should be working. And again, like if I run this in a different way, if I run it with no metronome but line input, so I'm gonna set it to this. So now I got another shortcut that runs it with no metronome click, but there is a line input. And the reason being that I wanna show it like this. So I'm on this track, got playback going
now
on.
It's recording,
and I'm gonna arm it.
It's recording, and that's the second pattern.
And here we go. We're recording this, and it's going through all kinds of effects. And I should really make it so that you can really recognize what's going on, and the kind of audio that might be happening, and all that junk.
Now it's recording.
So let me just hide all of those. So now I'm recording to this track, onto this pattern sample.
As you can see, the G01 is not there.
The line input is enabled. So see what happens when I trigger that very same shortcut again, the one that does the line
now
input.
It's recording.
So press it like this.
Now it's recording.
It removed the line input
pattern,
which is not ideal, but
that's the third pattern.
There it is. And so now this sample was not recorded with the effects, of course, but I was able to audition it up until I pressed the button to stop the recording. And now this plays without the line input, but through the effects. And this plays dry. And that's a long load of samples. It's a sample that's about 41 second length or whatever. And it just triggers and play.
So now it's recording. Now it's recording, and that's the second pattern. And that's the third pattern. And that's the fourth pattern. As you can see, the G01.
So this is how I would explain the overdub system to someone, and I hope it really helps you. I think the best way to describe this would be if I already had a beat going on with, say, the groove box or something, but most of the time when I'm working on these, I don't have access to my synths. I'm gonna make another better video explaining this, but I hope this kind of at least expands on the understanding of what the overdub is supposed to do. And remember, the same shortcut that starts it must be used to stop it. Because if you make the mistake of going like, well, here I am recording, and then if you make the mistake, well, let me show you the mistake. That's probably the easiest. So let's hit track 05. I'm gonna start the no line input, no metronome recording like this. And again, like, that's very frustrating that it doesn't set the sync start stop. That's very strange also. So let's have a look. Start. Yeah, we're not gonna solve that like that, but yeah. So I think one of the key crucial things that people, when they try to use Paketti Overdub, they neglect to consider that it needs to be in pattern mode. And I haven't ever written the documentation for that, because up until today it's been overdub has been used by me only. But if I reinitialize this with the pattern set on, and here I am, and there's no sample recorder going on, and I'm triggering this like this, the minute I start playback, it's gonna start recording whatever there is. But the catch is that because the sample recorder comes at you, it comes at you and you see it, the the kind of spinal cord knee-jerk response is, oh, I've stopped recording, let me press stop. And then, lo and behold, nothing happens. It's saved, but the beauty of this is thrown away because you didn't follow the golden path. The golden path is one shortcut to start overdub, same shortcut to quit overdub in order to get these to be written. And I do that mistake more often than anyone else, but I've tried to school myself out of it by simply triggering it myself with a shortcut or with a MIDI button, and then de-triggering or stopping the recording by pressing the same shortcut or MIDI mapping or menu entry. So I hope this helps. I hope you understand how this could be useful for your work. And I of course hope that these will eventually be scriptable so that I can just go, and this of course also, and this of course also, and these can be switched. Because once you can do something like that scripturally, it's going to be crazy, because the sample recorder could become scriptable. And let's say you got 16 inputs or 8 inputs or even 4 inputs on your sound card. You could be recording any of that stuff as you want without having to configure it. You could even configure it kind of like this, like RME01 rephase CS. And then this could be RME01 JD800, well, KD800, RME01 mic in, well, it's called Shure SMF58, this kind of stuff. And these could be read, they could be imprinted onto the instrument name, into the sample name, so it wouldn't be recorded sample, blah, blah. But as you can see, the beauty of Paketti Overdub is that it takes the input into the tracker away from you. The instrument that you've sampled already comes with the packetification, so you got the cutoffs and the resonances and all that stuff. And all you yourself need to do is set the sync start stop to pattern and create a new instrument on each take to know and compensate input and output latencies. So I hope this helps. If you got any questions, let me know. If you like how I'm thinking about Renoise and how I'm thinking about developing Paketti and these kind of features that make workflows easier and more fun, and you can focus on the compositional aspect rather than the grunt work of let's put this note here and let's put that effect there, that kind of stuff. Do subscribe to my Patreon or send me a PayPal donation or buy my stuff on Bandcamp or anything. It helps keep the show on the road, especially since I'm currently unemployed and looking for a job. I've got more time to make these videos, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to make these videos or to start making them, even though I have my own Recburn system here that lets me do these things, which I've built and which is open source, by the way. But I'm going to be making more of these, so keep asking questions. And as you can see, there's still a lot to explain out and kind of fulfill and make it like I could probably make a manual page simply for the overdub and make it have some images and text and explain how it works and what the thinking of it is. But here it is, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your time.